Okay, it is 10 o'clock. We're going to call this meeting to order. Certified, we do have a quorum. All 5 members are present. Item number 2 is public comments. We don't have anybody that signed up. Item number 3 is executive session in compliance with Texas Open Meetings Act 551 of the Government Code, deliberation regarding real property. And it is 10:01, and we'll recess into executive. Do we need to? All right, it is 10:21. We are back in regular session. I'm going to take item 5 first, which is deliberate, consider possible action on purchase of real property and budget amendment for the same. Do you have any action on that? Do you want to make that?
So moved what?
I do not like when y'all do that.
I knew that driving crazy. I'm not sure exactly how to word this thing.
I'll make the motion that we authorize
There you go.
Judge Brinkley to enter into the LOI and the budget amendment for the same, and to, is the other one a separate?
Yeah, and for the earnest money.
Well, I didn't know if the earnest money was
Yeah, it's
separate.
part of this one.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Snuggs, seconded by Commissioner John Clement. Are we going to disclose the building, since it's already kind of been disclosed?
Sounds like you might as well.
Go ahead, since everybody's watching on the stream.
That's not going to
It's
risk anything, is it?
No, I don't think so, since we, on it, but we are entering into seeking to enter into a due diligence period for the purchase of the Crest Building, which is located catty corner to the courthouse here.
I knew what we was doing until he said that.
Like what?
Entering into a due diligence period?
Well, yeah, we're purchasing it, then we got a due diligence option period in there of 120 days. But we are purchasing are entering into an agreement to purchase the Crest Building. Yeah. We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda, we'll just jump back up and take item 4, which is to, if I can get my agenda pulled back up here. Deliberate and consider possible action regarding employing Southwest Architects Incorporated for engineering services. It would be in regards to the potential purchase of that building. Got a motion by Commissioner Leon Clement.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Snuggs. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion passes 5-0. Item number 6 is deliberate and consider possible action regarding CARES Act funding grant. Let Ray come in here, because I think it may be just a good couple-minute overview of how we're spending some of those funds before we jump into possibly using some of those funds for the schools. So, Ray.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Thank you. I just wanted to mention a couple of things. Number one was to present with the graph we've been maintaining with our cases. It gives us a pretty good visual of how that has ebbed and flowed over the last 6 months almost. And we track that every day. It's based on symptom onset. So there's not going to be a lot in the last few days, because most folks have had these symptoms for a few days prior to the day we took these numbers. So we do have that available.
Ray, will you speak up? Speak up. Yeah. I can't hear you on the stream.
Okay. So I provided you the number of cases diagram we have, or bar graph. It just depicts, based on the date of symptom onset, our cases. That gives us that good visual interpretation of how our cases have evolved in Cooke County over the last 6 months or 5 months approximately. We have people hired as part-time employees that are doing the case management and contact tracing. We do that every day, afternoon, from usually noon to 5 and sometimes 6, depending on how late it goes. And then we're starting to add a second person to take on some of that, to have some depth of experience as well as manage the caseload. But that effort I think provides significant benefit for us. Number one, we identify in cooperation with the schools, oftentimes the case positive before we actually get the result from the performing agency or doctor's office. Because of that delay, sometimes it's 3 to 5 days before we get the official paperwork. So if we know about it ahead of time and find out about it the day of or the day after testing, then we can track it down and get it even quicker or request it. So it helps us identify those cases much quicker than we would normally get it if we just waited on the state to give us the information. We immediately contact the case and provide them very valuable information on what to expect with their quarantine or isolation, and give them guidance on what is required by the CDC, recommendations, and then work with them to develop a list of their contacts, and either have them contact them or we contact them, but we make contact or ensure that it's made with those contacts to make sure that they are quarantining. So I think it has a significant impact on the spread of the virus in Cooke County. We find more often than not, that they're very nervous and concerned, and so helping them understand what the isolation period is, based on the information we've gotten with over 400 cases now, kind of how it flows out, providing them the information online to go find more information, what exactly is a contact, and determine what those contacts are. So after a 10-day period of talking to them, our managers over there really develop a relationship with them, and I think it helps the person much more, it provides them some ease. It's someone that they can talk to and help them through this period. We also, of course, whenever we develop a contact or a case, then there's forms that are required to be submitted to DSHS with all of the pertinent information on that case, and that again helps them manage data and produce data on types of symptoms, length of disease, more information that maybe helps in the bigger picture as determining how bad it is or where it's at worse or what symptoms are more critical or not. We also do the screening and disinfecting for the county buildings, and those folks, I think, are doing a really good job at the doorways and in disinfecting the common areas in the courts. I think that provides a visual and notice to the community, I guess, that this is something that we do take serious and that we're protecting our employees and the integrity of the government operation in the courts by making sure that no one with a fever at least gets in. And then I think people are probably more likely than not to really think twice before they even go out and make sure that if they are anyway symptomatic, they limit their exposure. So I think it helps reduce that into our governmental agencies and lets us keep continuing business. And then with the courts, of course, freeing up court personnel so they can do their job. We also have these folks that will help wipe down and disinfect the court themselves. So just wanted to let you know that we are busy. We're doing that. We've got 7 or 8 personnel now that are either doing the cleaning and disinfecting and screening or managing the cases and contacts. And if I can answer any questions, I'd be happy to try at least.
Any questions for Ray? I thought this would be a good time to kind of talk about some of what was going on and where we were spending those funds. We did talk at last court about utilizing the CARES Act funding for helping pay salaries. I know that's obviously a justified expense, but that's still somewhat of a moving target. I didn't know, Shelley, if you had anything further on what can and can't be. I think there's still a lot more questions on exactly how far out that can go as far as agencies. Well, we can pay Ray's salary and possibly some EMS and maybe some, still trying to figure out how far out that is.
Well, you can, and they have now sent Ray shared it, and they have now sent a form that we now have to list every single employee, which is fine. I can do that. And you saw the question that I asked about paying for the extra week of, so basically what they're saying is it's up to the entities to decide what is virus related and what wasn't budgeted and things like that. And so, I mean, Ray spent his whole
Yeah.
time on virus and EMS, regardless of when they go on a call, they suit up as if it's gonna be virus related, you know, they've got to protect themselves and the patient, you know, so I feel comfortable, I feel 100% comfortable claiming both those departments. I cut back on the law enforcement. I included the jail because we shut the jail down in accepting visitors, additional, only, you know, we didn't take Class Cs. We didn't, only those that needed to go to jail came to jail. And so we were mitigating the virus in the jail by shutting down visitations and things like that. And so I felt comfortable with jail. The sheriff's office, K-9 units, courthouse security, maybe courthouse security because they were taking
The first few
down at
months.
the door, yeah. But just those salaries alone put us over the amount that we were awarded. Whether or not we're going to get awarded more money or not,
And how much were you awarded?
1.2.
So you got enough to qualify for 1.2.
We're at $4 million right now.
So
But that's
I
with,
saw the email and the response, and pretty much she said, anything you say, they're gonna accept. But I remember them talking, and this is Conan Resnick, and
Uh-huh.
you immediately started chuckling, but seriously,
Yeah.
that's how we went into the 2015 flood.
which is why I asked
Yeah.
on last court for y'all to make a decision on the salary.
Yeah,
So probably I'm gonna ask for the extended week of election, early voting, because the governor,
Governor called that in his.
Governor called that.
Mentioned
Yeah.
the reference.
because of COVID. I'm probably gonna ask y'all on next court to rule that as virus related also. Pardon me. And, just because then I have backup that the governing body has made that decision that that's virus related and we can claim those. Just per that email that we got.
Yeah, yeah.
And-
you think they'll change their mind?
I don't know that I don't know if we'll get additional money. I'll turn it in,
Yeah.
but I don't know if we'll get overrun.
So there's still not a lot of Treasury guidance on a lot, I mean, a lot of this is still, I looked it up some this morning, and it's on our listserv and stuff. And so there's a presumption, and exactly what Shelley was saying, but then where your point is, Leon, is exactly right, which is, by the time we get through all this, and whenever they do the audit, and maybe they give us the money now, but whenever they do the audit in 2 years or 3
Yeah,
years.
it didn't
Oh,
fall.
that actually, now that the rules have changed, even after this event.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have claimed that. Now, the good thing is most of these expenses are expenses that, now, their duties are gonna be primarily or at least substantially related to COVID, but their salaries we'd be paying anyway.
Just make sure you make copies of all of their comments and all of their promises and all of the in triplicate.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
But see, even the treasurer's office, treasury office, they are fighting amongst themselves because the treasury regs say we can claim salaries with no documentation. The Office of Inspector General in the Treasury office says we have to have it documented on what they did to mitigate COVID. So within their own offices, they're fighting each other.
It's kind of like giving you a certain amount of money to fix a road. At first, don't worry about it. As long as you spend more than what we allocated for the road, you're gonna be fine. And then, 3 years later, it turns into exactly what spot did you put it on? It's a
Right.
different version of the same thing.
Right.
My concern is, if we're talking about 4 million, we can do 25%, if that's the number, right? 'Cause
Well, technically, we only got 1.2.
Okay, okay, so. but
25%.
Say if in the 4 million scenario, we front 1 million,
Yeah.
okay, and that's out of our pocket, then they choose what they're not gonna reimburse, and we've
And
ended up picking up the tab.
Well, let's say 1.2, 25% of that is
300,000.
300,000, a little over $300,000. That's a big enough chunk there to have.
Now,
to-
I did meet with superintendents last week and tried to clarify what they're being told by TEA. They've got to submit some requests for reimbursement by the end of the month, and they get a 1-to-1 match on anything we give them on top of, and then they get a 75-25 split on top of that. So it does magnify whatever we give them on the local level out of the CARES funding.
If we give them 100, they get another 100?
Yes. Now, I asked them what would be the fairest way to break that down? And, I mean, all of them reached the same conclusion almost immediately, which is a X number of dollars or cents or whatever per kid.
Take the number of kids.
So, and I got their kid count already, and they said any money that we give them would be, I mean, because they've got to pay for all this tele and distance learning and all that type of stuff, which is a COVID-related expense, which has actually been already said to be COVID-approved expenditures, that they're paying for a substantial portion of that out of their pocket. They're getting reimbursed for some, obviously, through this system, but, so they basically said anything you give us is great, so.
How many students are there in Cooke County?
So there is, and I don't know if Ray did the math on top of this, but there is 6,899 students.
So if you got $300,000, that'd be $500.
Well, my thought process,
$50.
is, and I've got a formula or kind of in a formula now. I mean, if we just simply say, hey, we're going to divide up $100,000 between schools, that's $14.50 a kid. For Gainesville ISD, that would be $43,000. And it also includes Sacred Heart and St. Mary's in those numbers, even though they're private. But for the smallest one would be Civil's Bend at $724. There's just only 50 kids.
Yeah.
But, I'm not necessarily advocating for or against 100,000. That's a doable number and a safe number. I don't want to get too far. I mean, we could give them 50,000. We can give them nothing. But I just think if they can leverage that money in a situation like this, and that's an allowable expense.
So how much paperwork do they have to do on their
They have
end?
to do it regardless.
They're
Because,
going to have to do it anyway?
and so it's just sending us a copy of that. And all they need from us right now before October 1st is just a letter saying, yes, we will, and based on this formula or whatever. So if we can do it at $14.50 a kid, based on your current count as of last week, you had 400 kids, and then that's the dollar amount you get.
How do you come up with 100,000 versus 300,000?
Well, it's got to be, so we know for sure, for as sure as we can know, that we're getting $1.2 million. So, I mean, we can go higher, but I was just thinking and we know we have some COVID-related expenses that fall in that 25% already. We got, looks like 12,000. I know there's probably some that are not in that. So we've got some local expenditures already. We can give them more, but I was just trying to figure out a safe thing to be able to classify. So the most we would give them would be that, 300,000 or 400,000 or whatever that breaks down to. But I was just trying to find a safe number, which I thought 100,000.
I'm just curious, 100,000 fine with me.
I mean, I just thought a safe number for if we're completely wrong on the back end, we're not, I mean,
I
the
mean,
worst case,
technically, right now, we only have $224,000.
if you don't include salaries.
Well, that's all, but that's all we've gotten so far.
Oh, that's all the money we've got.
That's all we've gotten so far.
But
that
we
we've
send in
received.
reimbursement for,
Right.
they send that 20% up front, and then we get the rest of it based on a reimbursement.
Err on the side of caution.
I was thinking error on the side of caution, that is not an insignificant amount. You're not saying divide up $10,000 and here's $1 a student.
And then they get to double that.
And then they get to double that and leverage it for more funds,
That
so.
would be 200,000.
So, I mean, you could say $20 a kid, which would be whatever that equates to. I just, 100,000 was a nice round number, and it made it where it's $14.50 a kid. Which is a,
And it's just gonna, $200,028.
yeah, I mean, so it's,
$300,052.
yeah. But that is to me, that's enough that it can be impactful for them
Can
and
we
what they're.
increase that later? If they do
I
their
was just
numbers on
gonna say.
100,000, if our numbers increase, can we increase that later?
Their deadline is October 1st for this one, but I think if our numbers increase, it means we're going to be dealing with this in the spring, so there'll probably be a second round of this in the spring. This gets them through the end of the year, end of the fiscal, or end of the calendar year, excuse me.
I'd make a motion on the 100.
We've got a motion to equally divide the 100,000 amongst,
So it comes out,
Yeah,
per student.
per
Based
student.
on the per student
Yeah.
basis. That's all, I mean, that's the way they're accustomed to getting their money from the
Yeah,
state. and
yeah,
everything
that's
else. That's
easy
the
to
only
track,
fair way
easy
I
to-
know to do it is
easy to
per
figure out.
student.
Second.
I got a motion by Commissioner Hollowell, second by Commissioner Snuggs. Other discussion?
Is that
So-
to all? schools?
It's to all qualifying school districts, so we still got to figure out whether St. Mary's and Sacred Heart qualify. I think they do.
So it would be to divide 100,000 equally among schools by student population.
Yeah,
Enrollment.
enrollment, there we go.
Enrollment.
There.
So we're sure we're gonna qualify for 100,000. And we think we might qualify for 300,000.
Yeah,
And we could, if we do that, then we could come back in the second round
if there is, yeah,
if
and
there
there's
is a
money.
second round.
And we will know whether or not we're getting any reimbursements by then, too.
I think this is a safe number where we're not looking like we're leaving money on the table, or we're not leaving money on the table, but we're also not overextending ourselves as well. And it helped, I mean, to me, it's you know, we could say 125 or something, or
So that-
75,
It comes out of our money.
but then we get reimbursed for it.
As long as we get reimbursed, if not, it comes out of our
Well, but I
money.
mean, it comes out of our share, out
Yeah,
of our.
yeah.
The money that we haven't gotten yet.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, it comes out of our 75%.
Yeah, it comes out of our 75%, I understand.
What
But
comes
we're
out of the
still-
25%?
Oh, the 25.
No, it's 25% of our 75%.
Okay, yeah.
It's the 25% of the 70. That's what gets y'all.
Yeah,
good.
yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, we're on.
So what happens to that? That goes back into the general pool then if it never gets used. So we're turning that away.
Well, maybe not, because if they do a second round, we're accumulating. If we do the second
Well, I
round.
don't know if you're accumulating, that's the question. So does that stay in, for lack of better terms, our account, which I don't know if there is such a thing down there? Or does that go away and then get put back in the big pool and then they reallocate it?
It comes to us, and then, I mean, if the 100,000 comes to us, or actually, we expend it and then we get reimbursed for it. But we're gonna have total expenditures well over the 1.2 anyway, so, and we'll submit for whatever we've got. But the smaller cities and counties under 500,000 didn't get the same dollar per person
Oh, I
that
know.
the big ones did.
Oh, I know.
So the state's holding money.
Yeah. But the question is this, let's say there's $1 million sitting in a bank account somewhere, and we qualify for 300,000 on this, and we don't access it. We access 100,000. The 200,000 that's left over, does that go back to Governor Patrick and Abbott?
Yeah, it goes back into the bigger
It goes
pile.
back into the big pot, and then that ceases to exist for us because we've turned our back on it,
Or
so to say.
forbid it go back to the taxpayer.
Well, no,
It's invented money, I don't know that.
no.
Well, but it,
Yeah, you're,
It's, well, it's federal money, so I don't know. Well, December 30's right now, December 30 is,
And so if the
The
state,
the only reason for bringing all of this up, the statement has been made more than once already now that then if there's any left, we'll go back and get it, but that money is not necessarily gonna be there to get. They will do like they do with CTERS and everything else, whoever doesn't use it all, it goes back into the main account, and then it gets re-divvied up with everybody. That's the question I have.
well, but this is federal money.
I understand.
Teachers is state money.
Well, okay.
so
I understand that, but it doesn't matter if it's the state or the federal, whoever puts it back in the main, do they take it back and then
I'm
re-divvy?
assuming the feds will take it back.
Yeah,
unless they change it between now and then, which is.
but if they do that, we're still
We're
not
still
out
over
general
the
fund
one.
money. The problem is, the flip side of that is if they don't give us the money, then we're paying for it out of our
I
pocket.
understand that, but you're making the assumption that money's still gonna be there and it may
Well,
not.
and if it's not, then
That's fine.
But the 1.2 that we are allocated, we already have enough qualifying expenditures to expend past that. So we're not going to leave money on the table regardless of what we do.
I just have to get the reimbursement
We
request
just,
in.
we just, yeah, got to be able to submit.
But you won't be able to do this.
But we won't be able to do this
with the
again.
money. And if you
With
really
that
wanna
money.
get down to what the taxpayer gets out of it, every dollar generates another dollar. So potentially, if you don't access all 300,000, and I'm not advocating you do that, I'm just making sure everybody
It-
understands all of the math, the extra 200,000 would generate another.
We will already have it.
Because we'll have the reimbursement for other expenditures, but you're just saying that the ability to match that
The
one.
ability to match that will be gone. That is the point, because it has been laissez-faire put out here that, well, we can just go back and do this, not necessarily. I'm not advocating going over the
You mean the
$100,000,
schools won't be able to
Yes.
access? Okay, all right.
and we may not, okay.
I'm following you.
That was a long, well, there was a lot of things said about, well, we can just go back and do 100,000 now, we can go back and always
Well, we
get some
may or
more.
may not.
And you
don't
may
know.
not.
You just don't know.
I'm still good for the 100.
That's fine.
And I think that's a reasonable number that would be meaningful for the schools and actually, I think it's,
If you're getting frustrated, Gary, there was a lot of things said about, well, go back and get this, and no, you may not, because the 100,000 is fine, but I don't want the public thinking that we got the ability to get some more later
Well,
on,
yeah.
and we may not.
don't know.
I'm not frustrated at all. I'm erring on the side of caution, is my thought, as to what might come out of our general fund and not be reimbursed, whatever the number is.
That's true,
That's
too.
what I'm looking
I mean, and I think that's where that 100,000 is.
That's where my caution is.
But then you turn right around and say, we're gonna get it all, but that's fine.
You don't
Let's do
know.
the-
You don't know. Yeah, no, we don't.
That's the whole point.
We're
We don't
relying on
know.
the federal government to make a decision in a very interesting time.
I think we'll be surprised when it's over and it won't be happy.
So worst case, if we get nothing, we will be out $100,000.
$100,000.
Yeah.
Not 300.
Yeah.
That's my thinking.
Any other discussion on that? We do have a motion in a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes 5-0. Item number 7 is to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Snuggs,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Hollowell. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion passes 5-0.